Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be going over 5 reasons why you've stopped getting better at Fortnite. This is a problem that many people run into throughout their Fortnite career, and it can happen no matter what skill level you're currently at. Now obviously, there are tons of different things that could cause someone to stop improving, way too many for me to cover in a realistic amount of time. But the 5 reasons we're going to go over in this video are the most common mistakes players make that prevent them from getting better at the game. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first thing that holds a lot of people back from improving is focusing way too much on advanced techniques. I totally understand why this happens. People see pros make some crazy advanced play in a game and think, wow, that was so awesome, I want to learn how to do that. The only problem is, the crazy advanced technique that the pro player used likely isn't going to be effective unless you have pro level skill, which not many people do. And when you overcommit to trying to learn advanced techniques that are outside of your skill level, it hurts you in 2 different ways. First off, the time you spend practicing those crazy tricks could instead be used to learn techniques that you have a better chance of using. Second, once you practice one of those advanced tricks and I guess learn it on a very basic level, you're going to try to force yourself to use it in game, and odds are it's going to hurt you more than it helps you. It's kind of like how whenever you play a pickup basketball game nowadays, everyone's trying to shoot 30-footers because that's what they see Steph Curry and James Harden doing. Yeah, sure, it's effective when those guys do it because they're 2 of the best players in the world, but for an average person, that's probably the worst possible shot you could ever take. And I think avoiding this mistake is especially important for console players. Being capped at 60 FPS really limits your ability to perform advanced mechanical plays, and that's something I really wish more people understood. So when you see that pro do some crazy triple edit high ground retake, not only are they likely more skilled than you, but there's also a 99% chance they play on PC, so their game is also much smoother as a whole. I know that may sound harsh to some degree, but I promise you it's the truth. The next mistake that prevents a lot of players from improving is not embracing the current meta of the game. One of the coolest aspects of Fortnite, in my opinion, is how the meta of the game constantly changes. The rate of change has slowed down a bit in Chapter 2, but at least once or twice each new season, there's an update that totally changes the way the game is played. Sometimes that's because of certain weapon balancing changes, maybe a specific item getting added or removed, or like we've seen most recently, changes to certain mechanics in the game such as aim assist. So because of all the changes, it's important to understand that if your playstyle never changes with it, you're gonna fall behind in a lot of situations. A player that's a perfect example of changing playstyles based on the meta and having tons of success while doing so is Wavy Jacob. Back maybe 5 to 6 months ago, Jacob was pretty much the poster child for abusing legacy aim assist. His L2 spamming with ARs, shotguns, and SMGs was legendary, and it led to him absolutely dominating NA West Cash Cups and other competitive events at the beginning of Chapter 2. But then, when Legacy was removed from the game and we got a whole new meta in Chapter 2 Season 2, Jacob didn't even flinch. He quickly realized that without Legacy, ARs weren't going to be as effective at medium to long range, so now he jumps into boxes like a crazy person and uses an SMG a lot more than he did in the past. Because of his willingness to change, despite a massive meta shift, he's still just as dominant as ever. But for every Wavy Jacob, there's a player who refuses to switch their playstyle no matter what, and they get left behind. And on the flip side, there are a lot of players that can sort of emerge out of nowhere because of meta shifts. Guys like Furious, Scoped, and AV went from players that not too many people knew about to consensus top 5 to 10 controller players on the planet. Some people call them linear made, and I think that's definitely unfair, but it's undeniable that linear and the current linear friendly meta did help them to some degree. So you gotta be willing to adjust your playstyle based on the meta, or else you'll find it increasingly difficult to get better once you hit a certain point. The next common pitfall that leads to a lot of players not improving is that they don't work on their weaknesses as a player. In my last video, I talked about how important it is to know your overall skill level as a Fortnite player. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that it's also really important to know your strengths and weaknesses. The interesting thing about certain skills in Fortnite is that the better you are, the harder it becomes to improve. If your aim is already an 8 out of 10, it's going to be ridiculously hard to bump that up to a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, and since 8 out of 10 is already really good, even if you do make it better, the difference will barely even be noticeable. But now, let's say that same player with 8 out of 10 aim is only a 5 out of 10 when it comes to editing. Not only is it easier to improve that skill because you're worse at it, the results of your improvement will also lead much more directly to you getting better as a player. Now, a logical question at this point would be, well, how do I recognize what my strengths and weaknesses are as a player? Obviously, as you play more and more, it should become fairly obvious the areas you're lacking in, but a good way to quickly tell if you're not sure is to pay attention to why you're dying. If you're commonly dying because you got outbuilt to high ground, that's a pretty solid indicator that your building is a weakness. If you're constantly losing 50-50 shotgun, SMG, or AR fights, then that would be aim. And if it seems like you're always dying in box fights because your enemy always edits faster than you, well, that one's self-explanatory. The next thing that holds players back from improving is not taking the time to grind practice courses. The addition of creative mode practice courses into Fortnite was one of the most revolutionary changes in the history of the game, and I think it's a major reason why the skill level of the average player continues to increase now as much as ever, which is absolutely crazy because Fortnite's almost 3 years old at this point. The amount of pure uninterrupted training that an aim or editing course provides you is absolutely unmatched when it comes to improving those specific skills. I seriously think you'll do more total edits in a minute on an editing course than you will during an entire session of public matches. Now, I totally get that this isn't the most fun thing to do in the world. Like I mentioned in a previous video, if you only have an hour or two to play Fortnite total, who wants to spend some of that limited time in some boring editing or aim course? But I truly believe even if you spend as little as 5 to 10 minutes each day, it'll make a noticeable difference in the long term. And honestly, once you start doing it on a fairly consistent basis, it becomes slightly less boring because you start to notice the slight improvements you're making, and that motivates you to keep going. Plus, on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are times that I'll start slacking and go a few days without doing a course, and I'll honestly start to feel my editing or aim slightly deteriorating. The final mistake that a lot of players make which stops them from improving is playing with or against players that are out of their skill range. I can give you an absolutely perfect personal example of what I mean by this. The majority of my friends that I play Fortnite with are pretty much average and very casual players. So at the beginning of Chapter 2, when skill-based matchmaking was added into the game, we ran into a problem. Whenever we played squads, we would always be placed in high-tier lobbies which were filled with really sweaty players. For me, I didn't necessarily love that, but I could still definitely hold my own. But for my friends, on the other hand, it seemed like 90% of the players that they were fighting against were simply way better than them. This led to them not really improving as players and losing interest in the game as a whole. Not only is it frustrating when you go up against players that are way better than you, but it's also really hard to learn when you just seem to be getting constantly dominated. So that's why it's really important to play game modes that are going to put you with players near your skill level. Skill-based matchmaking in team modes is kinda bad because it really only considers the skill level of the best player, but in a mode like solos, it's actually pretty advantageous. My friends love playing solos way more than any mode now because they're always playing against players that are just like them. Now this also works the opposite way as well. If you're a really good player, you're not gonna learn much or get better if you just play zone wars against your friends who are terrible at the game. You should be trying things like scrims, grinding arena mode, or if you don't really like competitive, solo duos or solo squads is another great and really challenging option as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. Do you feel like you're someone who's recently been struggling to improve as a Fortnite player, or has that not really been a problem? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.